obscure world of parking. We use it every day, but have we really capitalized on the intricacies of our industry? In this podcast, the Parking Network will go behind the scenes and talk to industry professionals about all things parking, from the horizon of evolving technology and even stories of the old days. We hope to encourage and inspire operators and property managers alike to look at parking through a new lens. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Our Parking Industry Podcast. I'm Krista Olien, and I'm here with Clyde Wilson and Leigh Thomas. Today, we're doing episode 3 of our 3-part series about hidden fees. On our first episode, we got to explore the concept of how we got here. How did hidden fees become part of an industry norm? Our second episode was, what does that look like today? In 2026, how are we seeing hidden expenses, hidden fees? Where can we identify them? What can we do? Is the topic of episode 3. So episode 3, solutions, strategic approaches to identifying hidden fees, whether or not the industry can come back from this to a different model. How do we help support both asset managers and parking operators? TPN believes that parking operators are not currently getting what they deserve because in the bidding process, there's been a race to the bottom on this management fee. Asset owners have typically chosen who can do this for the cheapest price, and that's gotten us in a pickle. So how do we get out of it? Today, we're going to talk about solutions. I think there's 2 factors here. One of them is hidden expenses, which Clyde told a story about sitting in Monroe's office on a Saturday of all days and being taught how to hide these hidden expenses. But in more recent times, we're seeing hidden fees. So these are fees attached to parking transactions, hidden fees attached to just all the different platforms that are out there that are collecting revenue on behalf of each parking asset. And so as we go through today, we're going to talk about how asset owners can approach their parking operator, have constructive conversations, really improve the integrity of this industry. One thing that TPN has done in current times is we have really re-looked at how we help asset owners RFP processes. So we typically support asset owners on RFP processes for both vendor equipment and vendor parking management. Whenever we look at the RFP, we always just had a standard RFP, right? We're asking for the best bidder, we're summarizing it, helping the asset owner get a good idea of what kind of product they're going to receive based upon the bids that were put into place. Today, we are really looking at the RFP process in more of a strategic way where the asset owners, they have a better structured agreement from the beginning. So it's not this kind of general management proposal. We're looking at getting the structure in place where these hidden fees can't start to creep in. We're alleviating the problem from the beginning. So for more on that, we can talk more later, but we do have some other ideas that you can start implementing today as an asset owner and start considering if you're a parking manager that you might be hearing some of these things from your asset owners in the coming times. So Clyde, let's talk about the story with Monroe. I have a tough question. Are you ready?
Oh gosh. Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, so I want to tie it back to the Monroe story. So this is about the hidden expenses. So rather than hiding expense hikes, what was the right thing that should have been done back then whenever the transition was occurring from lease agreements to management agreements? What could have been done different? What could have changed? You had a high threshold of that 25% growth to meet. How could the landscape of today look different from the way it was started back in the transition from leases to management?
You know, my feeling, even going back 40 years, I don't think my feeling has changed much in that time. I was certainly on the front end of seeing the impact of how the management account process changed things. And the one thing that became, as a young manager, very obvious, and is still that way today, hasn't changed. 40 years later, still hasn't changed, is that the property managers and asset owners don't really see the parking companies, one as any different from the other. When customers are making a decision based on price, it means they don't really see a lot of difference between the products. So customers were making a decision based on price, which meant they didn't really see a lot of difference between us. And so what happens is a race to the bottom. Price goes lower, we bid lower. Price goes lower, we bid lower. The customer's not really seeing that there's a lot of difference between us as a parking company or that parking company over there. It doesn't matter. So they're under budget pressure from their asset owners, and they put it out for bid every so many years because then there's this competition among the parking companies to win a contract because everybody was learning how to cover payroll costs and cover other costs. After you won the bid, you could put some of the other costs in there. So that was 30, 40 years ago. I knew this as a young parking manager that that's what we had gotten ourselves into. And it seems to me the solution to this is we as an industry, we as a group of companies out there have to step up to the plate and say, you know what? I want to get paid based on the job I do. And I don't want to do a job that's the same mediocre job as that over there. I want to do a job that really impacts the property that I'm managing, that's good for my clients, and I want them to pay me for it. So I want them to pay me for the job I do. And if they don't want me to do that kind of a job, then maybe they do need somebody else. When we sold Focus Point to Central Parking in 2010, two of the top managers were brought in by the board of directors. His last background was Circuit City. Focus Point was a command center where people called if they had a problem in the lane. He brought in the guy that ran call centers for Circuit City, which was a big, high-profile operation. And this guy had a very educated background. He was one of the top people in Circuit City. I can almost remember exactly where we were. I think we were coming out of the back door at the corporate office at Central Parking, headed to lunch. And I said to him, I really want to hear what you have to say about the parking industry, the management account concept, and how much we collect off of running these properties. He didn't hesitate at all. He said, you guys act like you have to back up and get your fee every month, like you don't even deserve the crap you're getting. He didn't hesitate, did not hesitate. And I thought, boy, is he right. It was good for me to hear that from somebody on the outside watching us. And we didn't deserve it because we were doing a half-assed job in managing all these properties because our focus was on winning a contract, but not running the property to win the contract because we ran the properties better. He didn't even hesitate. And I have remembered that to this day. I can even remember the look on his face. And I think here we are.
One of the things that kind of brings to my mind is during that time, whenever the transition was being made from lease to management, it was going from local parking companies to national. Like that was the goal, was to be national. So it really shifted from this quantity versus quality concept. You didn't necessarily have to provide the best service to each individual garage because you only had some in a certain radius close to where you were. It was more about how many can we get across the country to meet our bottom line as a parking operator. So the quantity versus quality, I see that loud and clear with the statement you're making.
Yeah, it was. There was no doubt about it that if you're not making very much money, you got to have numbers. You got to win them all the time. And Monroe's famous statement was, because they were turning over so fast. See, with the lease, once you won a lease, you were there for a long time. It was really hard for somebody to come beat you and get your lease. Management accounts turned over all the time. So Monroe's favorite statement, and I've had people over the years repeat this to me. Oh yeah, I remember Monroe used to say all the time, you have to win more than you lose. Well, you were losing a lot, so you had to win a lot because we were this product in the customer's mind that there was just no difference from one to the next. Those are great questions, guys. You understand the challenges that we've had over the last 45 years. We allowed this to happen. This didn't have to happen. We could have moved into a management account concept and not ended up where we were and still are today. And the purpose of this conversation is to make sure we don't move into the future making the same mistake.
So that leads to my next tough question. We have really settled into this hidden fee style. We see 3 of the largest parking companies across the country either already doing this or on the verge of implementing this concept. So, will we come back from this hidden fee style? What will it take from parking management companies? What will it take from asset owners? Who's responsible for initiating that shift? What does that look like on the future landscape of the parking industry?
Well, boy, that's a long answer too. So let me see if I can cover all the pieces. We have certainly seen hidden fees. What we're also seeing is something that's interesting. We're seeing the same fees not hidden, but placed right out in front. But the parking companies have learned to just kind of put them in there and to cover why they're there. And the purchasing decision on the part of the asset owner has failed to question, wait a minute.
They're camouflaged fees.
That's right. Maybe that's the right answer. So we do have hidden fees, but we're also in lease term have camouflage fees. And some of the smaller regional companies are going to have a little bit of a problem with this, with pulling this off. The national companies that have their own IT departments are doing well at it right now. When we moved to management accounts, my management fees in 1981, 2 were $500, $600, $700 a month. If I had a management account that had a fee of $900 a month, it would go out for bid and some bozo would bid it at $500 a month.
And just from what we see in parking facilities across the country, there are still management accounts out there that have management fees under the $1,000 mark per month.
Yes.
And that's what we mean whenever we say the race to the bottom. We're not increasing, we're not accounting for inflation in our management, like we're not moving along with the times. Some are, but overall, not so much. It's really impacting the revenue that the parking companies are making. Therefore, the hidden fees seem to be a result of that.
As a manager 40-something years ago, I remember very well thinking, do these asset owners really believe we can manage this garage for $500 a month? Or the person who wins the bid can manage it for $500 a month. So remember, you're collecting $1.5 million in cash every year. Do you really believe they're managing it for $500 a month? I don't think they are. So our answer to that was the beginning of hidden fees, because to cover that, we started marking up expenses. So you win the contract, you turn in a budget. By the time 3 months later, you're selected, the contract's done, you become the manager. Nobody really went back and managed the expenses that you proposed in the proposal versus the ones that are in the contract that you started with. So what we have now is we started adding costs into 401k was marked up. Workers' comp was always marked up. The health insurance, we didn't have health insurance 40 years ago. No employee had health insurance. But as health insurance started creeping in as an expense, health insurance was marked up. Now, it was fairly easy for me to justify some of those because there was this other little thing that was in the contract that said, you're not allowed to charge any expense for managing this property that happens off-site. Well, the property manager that we had on site at 4th and Main was certainly not capable of managing the health insurance program or the 401k program. So those things had to be managed off site. So the only thing we could do was to mark up the costs. Or a $500 management account becomes a loser really fast. So we started hiding fees in there. Didn't get caught until the parking network came around. So an audit company run by a bunch of people that used to work in there and do that. So we would start exposing it. But that started the process of hidden fees. So you managed property based on your management fee plus all the hidden markups that you did. And that concept, as the central parking guys spread around the country as they left central parking, went to other companies, the other companies weren't doing that because they were hidden. So when they bid, they just bid a $500 management account. But when you look at the history and you look at where we are, the race to the bottom happened. It was certainly interesting to hear the guy from Circuit City instantly answer the question when I asked him. He had only been with us at the time I asked that question. He had only been there about 4 or 5 months. So here we are today, and the Parking Network is the audit company that's out in front of all this, and we audit people and we see what's happening. We see hidden fees or we see hidden expenses. We see this stuff. Well, as this group has talked many times, we're the one that gets to kind of see everything and then have to come back and evaluate it, how it fits into an audit report. So we feel very strongly that it's our responsibility to get out in front of this. It's here. We have the opportunity to not let it mature. We have the opportunity to try to move this into something else. And I think we also feel very strongly that the parking operators have to make money at this.
Yes, this whole conversation is not us saying that revenue and profit is bad. We are very interested in being profitable and everyone making a very livable wage. But we are asking for change, and there is a bit of urgency. Like Krista mentioned, the way that the industry is structured, it is just going to get more solidified as time goes by. So my opinion on this change is it really does need to happen from the top down. And that's why we're here. Like Clyde said, we're getting out in front of this. And we're advocating for a couple of things that we think would steer the industry in a more sustainable and transparent way. Some ideas, some solutions are we really need to restructure the RFP process. And so we're wanting our asset owners to redefine what they're looking for in vendors. Whenever you put out for an RFP, ask questions like, what are some best practice customer service procedures that you have? We're looking for next level operations. Do you use data for your staffing? Do you have ongoing training for your employees? These are the type of things that can differentiate operators for you more than their $500 management fees. So when you put out for an RFP, maybe let the management fee be a part of your decision-making process, but it should not be the first thing that you look at. Krista, what other ways could this RFP process be improved?
Yeah, I think asking the right questions from the beginning is really important. So we know that managing parking is not just about how much it's costing the asset owner to have that vendor downstairs in the dingy garage, right? There's way more to it than that. We want a parking operator that has good customer service, that communicates well with the asset owner. Those regular conversations, developing that relationship, having the tough conversations about a new revenue stream. What is it actually costing me? Being able to have those conversations or asking them from the beginning. Do you partner with fill in the blank? Because some of those can be red flags. If you have a parking operator that is partnering with someone, we've touched on that before, if they partner with an equipment vendor, sometimes that kind of pigeonholes you as an asset owner. The same is true for different e-commerce revenue collection or internal vendor created revenue collection platforms. You get to choose whether those are utilized at your site or not, depending on what operator you choose, what boundaries you establish from the beginning in that RFP process, how the contract is written, what pieces are written into the contract. And that only comes about with the transparency and asking those questions from the beginning. Leigh and I were talking, and one of the simplest scenarios that came up was whenever I go to my local coffee shop and now I pay with my card on this little machine that faces me. It doesn't face the person that I'm paying. It faces me, and I have to make all the choices. Now it asks me, do I want to tip $1, $2, and then I have to type in $0 manually if I don't want to tip for this coffee that I'm already buying from someone that's, getting it out of a little thing and putting a lid on it. So this concept of having the opportunity to tip if I have an exceptional service, right? If I feel like, wow, I really engaged with this person, they engaged back, this coffee is going to be fabulous, I enjoyed my experience, they provided great customer service, I can tip on top of that coffee that I'm already buying. But if I didn't, I'm still being asked will you give us more money? That's just so strange. But it does give the customer the opportunity to make that decision for themselves. The same is true for an asset owner. You're the customer in this scenario. You are the customer. We had a really great conversation with AG Scrimetti about customer rights. And a lot of times asset owners don't feel like they are the customer whenever they're running these RFP processes, but you are. You get to decide who is going to serve you as your parking manager. And financially, what does that look like? You get to establish those things and ask for that transparency from the beginning if you know the right things to look for. And that's why we created this series, because Leigh used the word camouflage earlier, and I thought that was great. We've kind of used a more aggressive word, hidden, but the word camouflage is really interesting because it's just creeping in a little bit. We don't really see it. It's in disguise for sure. It's put on and sold to us as this great benefit, or it's really going to improve your asset because now your customer can pay while they're riding in the elevator instead of whenever they get to the exit. But it's actually costing you as the asset owner money. So being able to make that informed decision, do I want a tip for my coffee or do I not? That's essentially the choice that you get to make in the RFP process if you're asking the right questions. And then whenever you write those agreements, don't copy and paste from the previous operator if you're shifting to a new operator. Don't copy and paste. You have to tailor those agreements to your new operator the way they do their business, because we are asking them to do their businesses differently so that you as an asset owner has a choice. You get to make an informed choice for the best vendor to manage your parking. So you can't expect to have the same contract in place copy and pasted from the vendor before that you're getting rid of. That doesn't make sense.
And the copy and paste from the same vendor 20 years ago. Like, come on, folks. If you're stuck, please call us. We can help you.
As we were talking, I was thinking about an operation that we are right in the middle of right now that was started as an RFP process. And even though this particular operation doesn't have cash involved, it's really just putting in controls, but there's no cash involved in this. But as I was listening, it still very much applies to the RFP process, because this was an RFP like none we've ever seen before. And everybody listening to this will get a good laugh out of this. The client is a very high-tech client. And I'm not even sure. I think I've lost count on months, how long we've been involved in this job. It's over a year, right?
Oh yeah, I think we're close to 18 months.
18 months. Not that we're saying RFP processes should take this long, but when you have a client that wants very, very specific operation today that can carry them into the future, we had to go out and find people who not only could provide what we were looking for today, but that we felt like could also be there in the future as this progressed. And then this, even though there's no money involved, this was a client that was very, very, very focused on communications and cybersecurity. And the reality is, as we went through this process, well, everybody should be concerned about these. Today, the cybersecurity issues are just every day. I mean, every day. So the RFP process, we've got to get over what we had in the past, and we do. We don't need it to take a year and a half. We need this still to be done in a month or so, but we do have to relook at how this whole RFP process is going and how it's written and how it impacts the future operation. And then I look at it, us on our side of running the RFP process, it's becoming our responsibility to be sure the owners know low fees does not mean more revenue to you.
Mm-hmm.
We have to find parking companies with management plans that can meet your operation, and your revenue goes up, and it will not be certainly the lowest fee.
One of the things about the project that Clyde's alluding to is that it is a parks equipment RFP, but we still had to consider this idea of SaaS fees in our RFP process because of this future adaptation and ability to be nimble as the growth of the online and virtual platforms increases. So in the bid, we had to ensure that this SaaS fee that's written in, it's in the original proposal. we have to be sure that the terms surrounding that SaaS fee are clearly defined. There's a percentage increase that's available. There's an opportunity for discussion at a certain time marker to reevaluate the SaaS fee and what integrations they're looking to do. So this is not even a parking operator vendor for management. This is a parks vendor, and we are still considering the same concepts because of this digitization. So in this digital environment, it is impacting your RFPs for parks vendors, but it's also impacting your RFP for management vendors. And some of those companies out there are claiming to be one and the same. You don't have a choice for parks equipment if you go with this certain parks vendor for management because they're the same thing. And they disguise or camouflage their SaaS fee as their technology fee. And it really comes down to impacting what it's costing you. So if you have a parks RFP and then you separately have a management vendor, you have a choice in both of those things. But one of the new concepts is eliminating that opportunity for choice for you because they are synonymous. Also, if you choose a parks vendor for the equipment, you pay for that equipment, whether you choose to pay for it over time or whether you choose to pay upfront and install it. With this new concept of because of the digitization, basically, that SaaS fee never ends. So you're essentially paying for that parks equipment for eternity. You never get to stop paying for it, even though technically it would be paid off within the first 2-3 years, and then it'll last you 10 years. So that digitization concept is really clouding the ability to say yes to things and say no to things. So be sure that you're asking the right questions, looking for what fits your facility the best, because again, facilities are not all the same. You have to know what your specific needs are. And we go back to the market, the customer base, all those things that impact that decision. So addressing all of that from the beginning is great. But what if, I'm going to pose this to Leigh first, what if we don't ask those questions to begin with, and now we're stuck with a contract that we still have 2 years left on? What can asset owners do today to help take a step in the right direction? And what's the next step?
Yeah, we've presented a lot of really big solutions that would take a lot of time to roll out. So I do have some ideas. If you're hearing this and you are feeling really concerned about your facility, I recommend that you close your laptop and you put on your tennis shoes and you leave your office and go to the garage. Go walk around, knock on the door of the operator's little dingy office, as you said earlier, and have a seat. And let's give you some questions to ask. I recommend that you follow your revenue, follow the money. Talk to that operator and ask, hey, if I'm a contracted parker and I pay you for a month's worth of parking, would you show me where that money goes? Every dollar that comes into your facility should be very easily traced. And if it's not traceable, then it is hidden and you need to be aware of it. So ask about your monthly contracted parkers. Where are those dollars going? Additionally, you can ask your operator to pull up a transaction report and look at the money. If a parker pays, $65 for a parking experience, ask your operator, where are those $65 going? Show me where they are going. I'm telling you, you can learn more with 1 hour with your parking operator than you can learn by looking at summary reports at your desk. So we recommend that you get in your garage and you ask very specific questions about following the money.
That's a great answer. That's a great start.
Yes. And then also, jump in your neighbor's car if you've got LP stuff in your garage, but jump in your neighbor's car so that you get rid of the ties to your ownership and drive in your garage and see what it's like to be a transient parker in your facility. See what the billing is like. See how transparent it is from start to finish of what it's like to be a parker in your garage. You might learn something and you might be really surprised. And it would be interesting to follow the money, first of all, but then also park in your facility and see if those experiences match. Your receipt as a parker, does it match the transaction report? Just see what your facility is like. Spend 1 hour doing that and see what you learn.
Or call the parking network.
I think the idea of sitting in your office and parking management companies, the summary report is what you get. The P&L at the end of the month, the summary of the month and revenue expenses. Those are really helpful whenever you make big decisions. But the little things like Leigh's talking about are also important whenever you make big decisions. Having that foundation of what does it actually look like to park in the garage I'm managing or owning with this vendor in place? What does that look like? What does it feel like? How can we improve it? What things can we do? But with that, the flip side of that coin is you can't pay them $500 and expect exemplary parking experiences. So you have to be willing to ask those big questions, make those big demands, honestly, that you want to see where that revenue is going so that you're able to identify and discern camouflage or hidden fees. But then you have to be able to fight for the parking operator that you want to put in place during that RFP process. If you receive pushback that their fee is too high, their fee is probably going to be higher than the others if they are providing a good service to meet those low spots that you've identified. So don't be afraid to pick the highest bidder. Number one. Number two, don't be afraid to demand more from them because you did pick them based upon what they can provide to your facility and to your asset overall. We say that the parking is the first and last point of contact. So whenever someone comes into your facility, parking is the first thing that they do before they head on upstairs to the 12th floor of your Class A office building. That needs to be a good experience, and you're probably not going to get that for $600 a month. You're not. So be willing to pay the operator for the job that they're doing and be willing to ask them to do a better job if you're already paying them and they're not.
Yes, those are all great points, guys. We have to, I think, to kind of boil this down, we have to take 45 years of history where we were managing the garage, that the very educated person coming into our industry from the outside told us, well, it looks like you have to back up to your fee every month. We have to change that, because probably the most important reason, number one, is there's a lot of reasons why it needs to be changed, but that you can't go into this on-site management of people in cash and move over to this e-commerce, electronic, data-driven company with what we had before. You have to change. And now I think what our message is, when you change, make your change the company that's going to carry you into the future. I have told parking managers this more than once, and will continue to tell them, we don't think the clients really care about, they care, everybody cares, but we don't think the clients really care about some of your expenses. They just want you to manage the garage. And if you do a great job of managing the garage, they'll not pay attention to your fee. If your fee is high, great. But my revenue's up $400,000 a year, and because your fee's up. And guys, every garage we've looked at in the last 2 or 3 years, haven't we hit an increase in bottom line for those garages by $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year in revenue?
Yeah, just by better management.
Just by better management and managing rates, managing expenses.
And expectations.
Yeah, you're right. That's probably the most important part. So we've been able to see it and do it. So why wouldn't you pay more to get that?
Mm-hmm.
I think we're here today because it's time. We don't need to move forward into the future without starting to think about this process. And I think before we started this call today, one of the questions that kept coming up was about, are we too late? Are we going to be able to get this new concept in place? And I think we all decided, it's not too late. It's actually still early enough in the process that all the parking operators can make the money that they deserve for managing this property, and the asset owners will get a parking management concept that works in this new digital e-commerce customer communication future. So I don't think we're late at all. I think we're really maybe early.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. I totally agree, Clyde. We are not late. We are just right on time, but we do need to start asking those questions, implementing some of those ideas right now so that we can get the ball rolling on this new idea and kind of put a stop to this lack of transparency, questionable integrity happening in the parking industry that we can come back from. So if you are an asset owner, start asking the questions. If you are a parking company, start providing the service that your customers deserve. They are your customers as the asset owners, but you also have the customers that are the parkers pulling into your garage. So provide it on both sides. If you have any questions about the RFP process, if you want a better look at how you're running those, what you're getting as a result of the questions you're asking during the RFP process, we are more than happy to help and support you in that. Please feel free to reach out to us. You can connect on social media. You can email us directly. We have our contact information on our website. And we are more than happy to help take a look at how you're currently requesting bids and how you can improve that process going forward so that you get the best service for your asset and ultimately the best return on your asset, because they are tied hand in hand. So thank you everybody for listening. And if you have any questions about hidden fees from this series, we are happy to look into that from our audit glasses as well. So we love to look into the numbers, look into the transactions, and we can help digest that information because it can be a challenge to really uncover those things. They're hidden for a reason, and so we can help you discover them. If you have any questions, again, feel free to reach out and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for joining us on today's episode and the series of the Our Parking Industry podcast. See you next time. To quote one of the greatest business minds of our time, Charles Munger, he said, "The best thing a human can do is help another human being know more." Here on Our Parking Industry podcast, we want to provide knowledge and resources. If you heard something that sparked your curiosity in today's episode, please reach out on our socials at TPN Consulting. You can find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Don't forget to subscribe and follow. See you next time on Our Parking Industry.